NBC Sunday Night Football, Notre Dame analyst, Super Bowl MVP, Drew Brees, set to join us on the program. And Drew will be on the call. Notre Dame hosting his alma mater, the Boilermakers of Purdue, this Saturday. That's at 2:30 Eastern. And then Football Night in America, he'll be on that, ahead of the Chiefs-Ravens, all on NBC and Peacock. And Drew Brees joins us. How's the weather in South Bend, Indiana?
I'm actually driving. I just passed Kokomo, Indiana. I'm on Highway 31 North, headed up to South Bend right now.
Did Notre Dame recruit you?
No, they didn't.
Sounds like you're still holding a grudge there.
No. Yeah, no grudges. I'm a Texas kid, so I wanted to go to the Texas schools. That was back in the old Southwest Conference days. You remember those days?
Yeah, oh yeah, I do. Did the Texas schools recruit you?
No, they didn't. both my parents went to Texas A&M, so I wanted to be an Aggie. Even though the reputation for the Aggies back then with quarterbacks it's where quarterbacks go to die, the quarterback graveyard. It was running back, and linebacker you. But still, I love the tradition. I wanted to be an Aggie.
Oh. How much did that hurt that all of a sudden you don't hear from them?
Well, ironically, my left tackle in high school was offered by A&M as like a sophomore. He was a phenom. His name was Seth McKinney. His older brother, Steve McKinney, was a lineman there at the time. Ended up playing in the league for a long time. Both those guys did. And so I went on an unofficial visit to A&M my senior year, and Seth's parents were pretty influential with A&M. His dad was the chancellor at A&M, and so they were really pushing the Aggies to recruit me. And so I think it was just out of respect for them that the Aggies kind of made it seem like they were a little bit interested. And so when I was on this unofficial visit, they scheduled an official visit for me in January. And so a week before the official visit, I called because I haven't heard a peep from A&M. And I said, "Hey, am I still coming on this visit?" And they said, "Oh yeah, we'll call you right back." and they never called back. So listen, it makes for a good story now, But things probably would have been quite different had I gone to A&M and not the spread offense at Purdue.
When did it hit you that you're not playing football any longer?
I mean, it's not like you just wake up one day and say, "Hey, I think I'm going to retire." I mean, that's a process. Especially as I got, later in my career, I knew that I was closer to the end than the beginning, and so you begin to think about how that's going to transpire and the feelings and emotions that go along with that.
But so like the weekends, with no football, but you're covering it. But do you wake up and you're like, "Oh God, I'm not playing," or I'm not preparing? Whereas, I mean, it was part of your life for decades.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a grind. Preparing to go play a game is a grind, and now it provides a weekly routine and it provides habits that I think really make you feel good, make you feel like you're going out and earning what you're going to get on Sundays. And so there's definitely something to that. But honestly, what fills that void for me now is coaching my kids and watching my kids play and still staying in tune with the game, obviously with broadcasting and with some of the things I'm doing with NBC. So there's ways that I'm filling that void.
Toughest thing to get used to as a member of the media?
Well, I don't really consider myself a member of the media, even though I guess technically I am. I try to approach it the same way I did as a player. I still prepare very much the same way in the way that I'm watching film and what I'm looking for, and what then I try to communicate to the fans. So maybe I'm just taking a different approach to it.
We had a conversation yesterday, and we were wondering what you would say to this. Are you Do you think you're better than Tom Brady?
That's not fair. I mean, there are. Let me just say it like this. There's no. You can't match up with the championships, right? I mean, look at just stop the conversation right there. The guy's won 7 championships. I mean, and you can go to each one, and it's very unique that my career has coincided almost exactly with his. He came out a year before me from Michigan. We played against each other in college, but certainly he's always been a guy that I've watched, respected, admired. Pull up their game tape, watch them. I mean, so many elements of his preparation and his process in getting ready to play that I feel like I know quite a bit about. So for that reason, so much respect and admiration. Listen, I'll be honest. I think each quarterback, and you could say this about Peyton Manning, you could say this about Aaron Rodgers, you could say this about the guys that came before us, like the Dan Marinos and the Elways and kind of that era. Each era of football kind of, especially with quarterbacks, I think kind of stands alone. I don't think it's fair to compare this era of quarterback with the eras that came before us, just because there's differences in the rules, there's differences in the environment, just all those things. There are things that I look at and say, Tom Brady does this better than anybody that I've ever seen. I could say that about Peyton Manning. I could say that about Aaron Rodgers. I could say that about myself. There's things that I think that I did better than anybody. So that's the way I look at it, is there's elements of everyone's game that probably set them apart from everybody else.
Yeah, because he has the resume, but the competitor in you still would feel like, I mean, you didn't get to on the doorstep of the Hall of Fame without having belief in yourself. If somebody said, hey, are you better than Bob Costas? At certain things I am. He's got the resume. He's got all of the sports Emmys. But in my mind, I feel like, hey, I can do things that he can't do and vice versa.
Exactly. So, there's this competitive edge that exists with guys when you're in the, like, when you're in the mix, when you're in the moment, when you're playing the game, right? Like, I always felt like, especially maybe with quarterbacks in the NFL, that we would all have even closer relationships if it wasn't for the game. It is just so competitive, and we want to beat each other. We want to be better than that other guy. And I think we recognize the areas where someone might be better than us. Like, I can turn on the film and say, man, I recognize where Brady's better than me, or where Rodgers is, or Peyton, or one of these guys. And yet, so what do I have to do to get an edge on them, right? And obviously we're not playing against each other in a game, but at the same time we are. Because my performance has to be better than his performance in order for us to win this game, right? So yeah, that's how you develop an edge. I mean, that's how you develop your strategy for how you're going to need to approach the game or approach your performance in order to be better.
Talking to Drew Brees, his alma mater is playing Notre Dame coming up this Saturday at 7:30 Eastern, and of course, football night in America at 7 Eastern on Sunday. That'll be the Chiefs and the Ravens. Last time you spoke to Jameis Winston was when?
I talked to him after the game.
Did you talk to him before the game?
We'll text. I'm in touch with him and Taysom quite a bit throughout training camp, the preseason, and during the season.
Are you an unofficial assistant coach?
I will say this. I did have the game plan for the game in my hand.
Wait, did you write it up? Did you? Okay. The Saints gave it to you.
Yeah, the Saints gave it to
me. How's Notre Dame looking, by the way?
You know what? They're finding ways to win. I'll say that. They open up the season down at Florida State, which, fans are back, hostile environment. Obviously, Florida State was geeked up for that game. Notre Dame goes up by, 18 points in the fourth quarter, and then really allows Florida State to get back in that game and tie it. And then it goes to overtime, and Notre Dame finds a way to win. That game really should have been much more convincing for Notre Dame. They just let them back in. They played Toledo at home this last weekend, and honestly, Toledo should have beat them.
Yeah.
Toledo outplayed them.
Yeah. I agree.
But listen, what do good teams do? They find a way to win, even if they're not playing their best football. I'd say this about Notre Dame: it's a different team than it was last year. They lost a lot of. Listen, they had like 9 guys drafted, right? So 4 out of their 5 offensive linemen, a couple key defensive starters. So to me, they're still trying to find their identity on both sides of the ball, both offensively and defensively. They get Jack Cohn, a graduate transfer from Wisconsin. He's done a great job for them. They've got this young, true freshman quarterback in Tyler Buckner, who came in against Toledo and was electric in what he was able to do. Defensively, they have a new defensive coordinator, Marcus Freeman, who is bringing in this aggressive style of defense. He was defensive coordinator at Cincinnati prior to this. So you're seeing a lot more variation in what they're doing, pressure, et cetera. But they just haven't quite found their identity yet. And I think a lot of it's just based on, hey, where do our strengths lie? What's our personnel look like? And then how are we going to develop the system around that?
How's the city of New Orleans after Hurricane Ida?
It's on the rebound, as New Orleans always finds a way to do. It's so resilient, and people band together and just work to come back. This was such a sudden deal. The way that Ida just picked up in force and hit New Orleans and really all of South Louisiana. And I think the major issue was the power outages. And just what that causes. Schools. In many cases, kids haven't gone back to school. A lot of families have been displaced. That's both college, high school, all the way down. The New Orleans Saints are in Dallas right now, practicing, I think, for another week or two, and have been since the storm. So just so many ramifications. I know that power line workers are just working around the clock, sleeping in their cars down in South Louisiana to try to restore power. We're working with a bunch of organizations like Convoy of Hope and Second Harvest Food Bank and others to get a lot of these people food, resources, the things they need in order to restore power so that we get families back in their homes and schools back going again. And so it's just the challenges that come along with that.
Here's a little tip. If your alma mater beats Notre Dame, don't jump up and say we won, okay?
Yeah, they're trying to coach the "we" out of my lingo when it comes to Purdue and the Saints,
Yeah, you can't say "we." Can't.
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard.
No cheering. No cheering in the press box, all right?
Listen, you know what I found myself, even last week, I find myself cheering for, like, really just good, sound football. And some offensive fireworks. And I like seeing good schemes on offense, good concepts, good execution. So I find myself cheering for whoever's on offense.
Safe travels. We'll be watching on Saturday night, and great to catch up with you again, Drew.
Bye, Dan. You too. Thank you.
That's Drew Brees. He'll be on the call. That game is Saturday at 2:30 Eastern, and then Sunday night at 7 Eastern with Football Night in America.